Hey guys, welcome back to JDMods. Today we're going to be rebuilding my 3S GTE with all new OEM parts. So here we have my stripped down 3S GTE long block, and since the last video we degreased a bunch of the parts that we took off. I'll show you those over here. Got all of the parts on the ground, most of them degreased and ready to go back on, and then we also have all of the new gaskets we need over here. So first I'm going to have to take the engine off the engine stand again to do the rear main seal, and then the rest of it I'm going to be doing on the stand. Now that we have the engine off the engine stand, we have access to the rear main seal carrier and the rear main seal. So I've removed the rear main seal carrier and I scraped the paper gasket that got stuck on here and stuck on the engine block. I used an X-Acto knife to scrape it off. Now I'm going to replace the rear main seal. I removed the old one and I have my new one here, as well as the new paper gasket. So I've reinstalled the rear main seal carrier with my new rear main seal, and I used this digital torque adapter to make sure that I was torquing it to 9.3 Newton meters. Now I have to put the engine back on the engine stand to do the rest. Next up, I'm going to be rebuilding the oil pump. So I've got here my oil pump rebuild kit, front main seal, and oil pump gasket. So now that I've rebuilt the oil pump, I'm going to reinstall it with a new gasket, and the long bolts go on the bottom left and the bottom right. Now I'm going to flip the engine over so that I can do the baffle plate, oil strainer, and oil pan. So I've really thoroughly cleaned both the block and the oil pan, and now I'm going to use some Right Stuff gasket maker on the oil pan and then squish it onto the block. So we finished putting on the oil pan, but it was a little bit rusty, so I just did a quick coat of POR 15. So next I'm just going to flip it over for the last time, and we're going to do the water pump and timing components. So I'm going to start rebuilding the water pump now, and I've got all of my new gaskets here ready to go. So I have the water pump apart. The Phillips on the front gave me a bit of a time. I ended up having to drill it out, but I did eventually get it open. And as you can see, I've got quite a bit of gasket to scrape off here. It's nice and baked on, so that's going to take me a minute. So the water pump is now ready to be reinstalled. So I'm about to install the water inlet pipe, but before I do, I wanted to mention I have my old thermostat here, and I had purchased a new thermostat to install, but I noticed that there isn't this little like bleeder valve on the new one, which allows air to escape if you do get a little air bubble. So I'm actually not going to install the new one. I'm going to install the OEM one because that is definitely a superior thermostat. So next, I'm going to be replacing the cam seals before installing the backing plate and the cam gears. So now that I've got the cam gears on, I'm going to install a new timing belt. So now I'm going to go ahead and install the valve cover with new gaskets and titanium bolts. Now that the valve cover is installed, I'm going to start off by working on the exhaust side, installing the coolant hard lines and the oil cooler. So now that I've installed everything that is underneath the turbo manifold, I can finally put the turbo manifold on. So I have the turbo manifold installed on the motor, but I do not have an oil drain line that came with this motor. So Kyle's currently working on the old one, removing the oil drain line, and I'm going to go ahead and get the coolant tree ready. Now that the coolant tray is installed, I'm going to go ahead and rebuild the distributor. Next, I'm going to be installing the TVIS, intake, fuel rail, and throttle body. So that is all the assembly completed that we can do on the engine stand. Now we're going to put it on the ground so we can install the clutch and the transmission. So we put on the clutch and transmission as well as all the little bits and pieces that were left to put on, and it's pretty much ready to go into my MR2. That's where I'm going to leave today's video. I didn't want it to get too long. Thank you for watching. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe.